There is hardly anything that I love more than how these amazing systems help us to unlock layers of that connection with others and like that parent-child connection. We think that it should come so natural, and honestly, some aspects of it really just don't. Absolutely. And it's never too late. If you have adult children, you can also get to know them better too and go to them and say, wow, I simply didn't know these things about you. I'm so sorry. I just think you're wonderful, and I love connecting with you adult to adult, and like, can we try this again?
Welcome back to the Nourished Connections podcast. I'm your host, Heather Mitchell, and today you guys are in such luck. I have Naomi Fox Reina with us. She is a light-filled astrologer. She certifies people in astrology. She teaches human design and astrology to people who want to get to know themselves and their children better. So I have invested in several of her courses. I've taken her light-filled parenting course, and that's why I have her here today. I want her to talk to us about everything this course entails and all the things. So welcome, Naomi, to the podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much. Oh my gosh, I'm doing amazing. And yes, there is hardly anything that I love more than how these amazing systems help us to unlock layers of that connection with others and like that parent-child connection. We think that it should come so natural, and honestly, some aspects of it really just don't.
It doesn't. And this is really the missing link, you guys. If you feel like, I don't understand my teenager, I don't understand my child, I just have to punish them more, I have to come down hard on them, you need to hear this first, because what is in this course is going to really teach you how to get to know your child on a deeper level. And actually, you'll be able to get along with them so much better and have so much more peace and joy in your home just from knowing your child. So first of all, I want to get into human design, because I started learning about human design a couple of years ago when someone was on a podcast and mentioned a human design, and all of a sudden my ears perked up and it was like, Heather, listen.
Yes.
And I was like, I have to know more about myself. And this is the way that I have to know about myself and how God created me to be. And this is how I have to get to know my children too. But I had not dove deep into getting to know my children until your course even came along, which was just now. I had to wait a couple of years till this even presented itself in my life. So I want you to tell us what human design is. First of all, is it astrology? What exactly is human design? Who is the creator of human design? And tell us why we should care.
That's a great question. So human design was actually given to the world in 1987. So it is a very new system when you contrast it with like the ancientness of astrology and other types of systems that we have on the planet. And it is a synthesis of astrology, specifically Western astrology, and the Kabbalah and the I Ching and quantum physics, all kind of rolled into one. We got it from a man who he changed his name afterwards, and he went by Ra Uru Hu. He got this download for 8 days in Ibiza, Spain, just got a total flow, just kept writing and writing from what he calls the voice. And he was given this whole system. And so it's very interesting that this random person seemingly was given this incredible system, and he did his best to teach it, and he did a great job kind of getting it out there. But it wasn't until after his death, he died kind of young in 2011, where it really kind of started to explode. And now I even saw an article in Forbes recently talking about human design. It is really, really gaining steam because it is such a pinpointed way of helping us to understand how our energy governs, how other people are experiencing us, what the path is for how to make decisions to have a really satisfying or successful or peaceful life, and how it is that other people are too. It's the science of differentiation. And so it folds in beautifully with astrology because they're based on similar things the minute that you entered the planet. But human design is far more complex than astrology. However, the initial things are the most impactful. The easiest things in human design to understand are also the ones that will make the biggest difference in your life. Just understanding the most basics will revolutionize all of your relationships instantly.
Right. Now, I cannot comprehend how Ra got an 8-day download of all of this, because like you said, it is so complex. And if you tell people who maybe are like already skeptics of this kind of stuff, they're going to be like, well, why should I listen to him? Was he on drugs? Like,
yeah, probably.
Why,
honestly,
like, why would he get this and some like a prophet of a leadership church wouldn't, like, why should we listen to this guy type of thing?
I totally agree. And I am first a skeptic. Like I was first presented with human design way before astrology, and I actually tossed it out. I was like, there is no way that the minute that I was born can have that level of bearing on my life. Like totally tossed it out the window. I vaguely remembered what my type was and a couple of things. I remember looking at my chart. I remember it changed something in me just to look at it, even though I didn't understand anything about it. Just looking at your chart physically, even if you have no context, will start to change things in you. It was a full 7 years later that someone brought it to my attention again, well after I had been teaching astrology and got all into that world due to my life cracking open and me being open to things from a different perspective. And with that, I was able to integrate human design. And a friend brought it up. She was like, well, what's your human design? And I was like, I think I'm a projector. She's like, that doesn't sound right. You act more like a manifesting generator. We run my chart. Sure enough, I'm a projector, like I remembered. And she was like, oh, she's like, you sure act like a manifesting generator. And I was like, well, maybe that's why I am so burnt out and I'm super tired and I can't function anymore. And sure enough, that was it. I was very, very aggressively trying to live as though I was somebody that I was not. And it was an epic, hellacious disaster.
Wow. Okay. So I was trying to tell my husband about this, right? And he says between human design and astrology, I feel like you all are trying to fit something somewhere in somebody's life. So he's like, so if I'm a runner, you're going to say, oh, that's because your
Mhm.
Mercury's here. You know what I mean? Like we're always
Right.
trying to fit whatever's going on. I like to take naps. Well, that's because your body needs rest because you might be this Taurus energy, or you know what I mean? Like, he thinks that we're always just trying to fit something in, and so that's where he plays devil's advocate
Yeah.
with astrology and
Oh
human
yeah.
design. And
I did that too.
I don't know how to counter argue it to people. If you're not open, you're not open, right?
Yeah,
But I feel like you almost have to be flexible in your learning and open to hearing new ideas of doing things because it can totally rock and change your world, right?
absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And I was the same way. And so I'm not out to like convert anybody. I don't need to change anybody's mind to make myself feel more validated. However, what I've noticed, especially when it comes to the spousal relationship, so usually it's the wife is like, "Oh my gosh, I learned this new thing." And she goes to her husband and she tells him all excited, like, "I learned this new thing." She's translating the parts that meant the most to her, but she's not able to deliver to him the parts that are going to mean the most to him. So
Right.
he's just hearing about this new thing that his wife is excited about. And he might respect his wife's intelligence and, getting into new things and all of that. But until it applies to him, like as individuals, we're very egocentric this way. I'm the most fun person at parties because I can talk about you forever. Like I can tell you things about yourself that you don't even know how to put words to. And so people love to talk about themselves. And so what I found is in the typical scenario of wife finds a new thing, like human design, gets excited, goes and tells her husband, and it
Yep.
lands flat, and he's kind of like, okay. And then, the next several years flop along and she gets more into it, and he's like, oh, that weird thing that my wife's into. The best way to do it is to say, hey, I found this new thing. It's really cool. I don't really fully know how to explain it to you, but listen to this podcast that I just listened to. This really helped me. And then you can kind of go on the journey together of diving into it, or book a one-on-one session or like a one-on-two session, really like a couple session. Do something where you give him a chance to learn from the source that you learned from, because it's like playing telephone. By the time that you pass on to him the things that you're so excited about, it's less common that he's going to have that same journey. And I just can appreciate this because I was so skeptical and I was so not welcome to this type of a way of thinking until I had someone totally focus on me and give me like the golden nugget pieces that I needed for all of this, so that then I could take that and it could mean something. It's like a conversion story, if you will. Like you
Hmm.
need to have that deepening for yourself. Otherwise, it's like, well, that's great that you're into it, but it's not for me. Like it doesn't mean
Right.
anything to me.
Right.
And so that's the problem, quote unquote problem, that I often see with married couples. And whenever I get a chance to do a couple session, it's usually the wife is like, come do this thing. And, he's like, I
Hmm.
don't want to spend any money on this. This is crazy. And, you know, by the time we get to that point, he's sort of open. And by the end of the session, his mind is completely blown. And he's like, this is incredible. Everybody needs to know about this.
Yeah. And listen, I feel like I'm coming out of the closet almost to people like, guys, I'm into
Yeah.
astrology and human
Hmm.
design because
Hmm.
people do look at it as like, what is this witchcraft you might be into? And it's not, it's really not that at all. And because I feel like I'm this Scorpio energy, I could keep this a secret forever.
Yes.
If you're gonna give me a hard time about it, I won't talk to you about it forever. As much as
Yes.
my soul wants to, I won't. I'll keep it under the down low. So
Absolutely. I can totally relate. Astrology definitely went through something of a smear campaign from religious organizations. It
mhm.
really started with the Catholic Church, even though the Catholic Church has one of the largest astrological libraries that exists. And like in a lot of the Catholic in the cathedrals, there's a ton of astrological artwork and depictions and things like that. But then they were like, okay, astrology is evil. And then that has rippled through a lot of conservative, specifically Christian religions have sort of adopted, like, well, astrology is evil. We just don't touch it. That's how I grew up. And what we really need to understand is that the wise men, the magi, were astrologers.
Yeah.
Daniel was an astrologer. That's how he was able to interpret the king's dreams, like Daniel in the lion's den. Like he was a master astrologer, and that's how he
I
was
mentioned
able.
that to someone and they're like, no, he was an astronomer and that's different.
And astronomy and astrology used to be 100% synonymous. It has only been in the last relatively short little while that they were separate. Hippocrates said that no one should ever be a physician without consulting the natal chart. And
Wow.
like astrology was considered and regarded a science of serious study up until fairly recently, like the last couple hundred years, maybe even 100 years. And so it's definitely gotten shoved to the side as a pseudoscience, as all of these things. And that's fine. If people want to do that, I think that there are people that are called to it. There's that spark inside of them in astrology and human design that says, pay attention to this. There's something here for you. Those are
Yes.
the people that I'm called to talk to. If people are
Yes.
closed-minded to it, or if they're just meant to pursue a different system or a different thing to learn, that's totally fine. You don't
Right.
have to learn astrology and human design to be a good person. Like, but to me, it's a phenomenal map that just cuts through so much, gets you right to the heart of it, and you can stop doing the things that are literally directly opposed to how you are supposed to be, and you can start doing the things that your heart has probably been yearning for, but you just didn't know you had permission to do.
Exactly. That's exactly what this is, you guys.
Yes.
It's a system for you to really adopt who you are and embrace it and be like, oh my gosh, this is who God created me to be and my children. And
Yes.
now I can look at them through God's eyes almost like this is who
Hmm.
he made them to be. So it's so
Yep.
light filled the way you
Yes.
teach it, even that I have to argue with people and say, well, show me the darkness in it because I don't see any. I
Yeah.
see only light. And I
Yeah.
know that Satan has along the way taken symbols that might look
Yes.
like astrology and made them into evil things. And so, you might need the power to discern when that's happening or whatever. But I've
Yeah.
only ever gotten a light impression from it and
Yeah.
a deeper connection with Creator. How about you?
The biggest argument that I've heard of why astrology could be evil or why to not touch it and things like that is there is merit that some people will look to astrology rather than looking to God. They'll go to their astrology chart or their human design chart before or instead of going to God. And they'll try to predict things and they'll try to make this information their God, their savior.
Mm-hmm.
And so anything that does that. I mean, somebody who plays the stock market or works in the stock market, they could worship the data points and the maps and the strategy and all of that just in the same way.
Right.
Anything that gets in between you and your relationship with your great and powerful God, that thing is a problem.
Sounds
But
like the iPhone, right?
yeah, anything can be there. And pretty much anything that can be inserted in between can also be a beautiful facilitator to bring you closer. Like with the iPhone, you can put apps on there that can literally bring you closer to God. And
Yes.
you can look at your astrology or human design chart and go, wow, I'm in awe of what my creator can do. This is
Yes.
beautiful. I
Yes.
love this and worship and praise him more. For me, I was given the massive golden permission slip to just be who I am and step out of so much shame so I could hear God better. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how much I was doing these gymnastics around, well, I should be this and I shouldn't be this, even when it came to prayer and to receiving answers. And once I could just sink into and surrender into who I actually am and stop trying to be something I'm not, the voice of God became more clear,
Yes.
independent of astrology and human design, but because I can see, oh, look at that. He gave me the map. I can see exactly
Mm-hmm.
what I'm supposed to be doing and how my energy governs, and I can delight whenever those parts of me come out.
Yeah. But you know what I love about this stuff too is we have this Gen Z, and a lot of them, they don't believe in God, but they do believe there's something in the universe. And so a lot of them will turn to astrology. And now that can spark a
Yes.
conversation of we have a God, right?
Yeah.
And he created you. So sometimes it comes out of that stuff for these new generational kids who are coming and whatever to at least connect with source and then hopefully turn it into God and understand that that is God who gives us everything. So,
You want to know something really cool about Gen Z? So Pluto is a generational planet. It takes anywhere from 12 to 30 years to go through a whole sign. So it's very slow moving. So you have a
yeah.
huge chunk of people that are born that have the same Pluto placement. So when you look at Pluto transits and like what's going on from 1995 until 2008, so all the babies born between 1995 and 2008 have Pluto in Sagittarius.
Mm.
Sagittarius is the sign of God and religion and higher thinking, and Pluto is death and destruction. So
Oh my
all of these
gosh.
kids are, what Pluto does is it will incinerate whatever is there. And the only thing that will emerge out of the ashes is what is really, really true, what is really, really real. Like I'm of the Pluto Libra generation,
Mm.
and that generation, Libra is the sign of marriage and contracts and balance. My generation has totally transformed marriage like we've never seen before. And regular divorces, regular like conversations around like balance of work in the home and just completely restructuring marriage and balance. These people born between 1995 and 2008, they are here to absolutely confront what is true, like true, 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 at a level that the rest of us can't comprehend. We're like, yeah, I'll accept it as truth. And they're like, no, I want the bare, naked, ugly truth. And they will not stop until they get it. And so when they're being served up this religion, that comes with culture and traditions of men and the philosophies of men mingled with scripture, all of these things, they're like, absolutely not, I want nothing to do with that. And they should, because these children, these people, I have one of my children is of this Pluto Sagittarius generation, and my other two are Pluto Capricorn. And so they are here to really pursue truth, and they will have it written on their souls, and they want nothing to do with this stale, boring, passed on truth. They need to know for themselves. And so it's going to look like a faith crisis for a large part of their life, but we need to trust them to come out of it knowing what is true in a way that will leave us in awe. If you could push
Mm.
fast forward and see them in a couple of decades and see like where they have matured into around this destruction and rebirth of truth, it would make you want to sit and learn at their feet. I'm
Mm.
so excited for what this generation has to offer, but they will not be spoon-fed the traditions of their fathers and grandfathers and all of that. They want nothing to do with it.
Oh, thank you for saying that. So 1994 to 2008, I have a 2008 baby, and
Mhm.
he is like that. So you guys, this is going to open up a whole new light for you to see your children like for who they are and love them and respect them. And I've always been in awe of my oldest, even though he's been hard to deal with sometimes. Like there's some innate wisdom in him that
100%.
I'm not
Absolutely.
I'm not catching it, but it's there. And I just know his soul or something is older than mine. He knows something I don't know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I want to learn from him. Okay, so human design. Okay, for now your course is all about light-filled parenting. So you do go into astrology and knowing your children's astrological sign and all of that. And
Mhm.
there's so much to that. I love this.
Yes.
And then you have this whole module on human design for
Yes.
kids.
Yes. Yeah.
So is there a way you can pull up a chart to maybe show the audience what a chart might
Yeah.
look like
Absolutely.
if I make you a
And
co-host here?
yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Do you want me to show one of your children's or yours or just a random
Why
chart?
don't you show like DAXs or something?
Okay, sounds good.
Okay,
I
let's
always ask permission because obviously this is, we're looking at information that is very, very personal. Okay, so this is a human design chart. I like the software called Maya Mechanics. I probably use like 6 different softwares, but if I'm running it on my computer, on my desktop, this is pretty much the software that I use.
Okay,
So,
now before you go any further, people aren't going to see this because they're going to be hearing it, but
mhm,
this will be on my YouTube page, you
yes.
guys. So come and look at what we're talking about here. Okay, go
Yeah,
ahead.
you'll definitely want to see the visual of this. So yes, keep listening on the podcast if that's where you're at. But yes, pop over to the YouTube channel because this will help a ton.
Yes.
So, sweet Dax.
Sweet little Daxie, tell me more.
Yes. Okay. So, I'm first going to give a little bit of overview and then we'll dive into him specifically. So, you can see here is a generic body shape that has 9 centers to it. Some of the centers have colors in them and some of them do not. And so, the centers that have colors in them, those are what's called defined. Those are centers that Dax has consistent energy that he can draw upon on those particular centers. The centers that are white are called undefined or open, and they have inconsistent access, but everybody has all 9 centers. And it's just a matter of which ones are defined and which ones are undefined. Some charts have all of them defined. Some of them have none of them defined. Those are much less common. Most charts have at least 2 and up to 9 defined.
Okay.
The people that have absolutely nothing defined, that's less than 1% of the population. Those are called reflectors. So in human design, there are 5 different aura types. There's
Mm-hmm.
manifestors, generators, manifesting generators, projectors, and reflectors. So of the different types, Dax is a manifester, which is only about 8% of the population. So he is a lot less common. Generator types, both generators and manifesting generators, make up 70% of the population. So the vast majority of people on the planet are some kind of a generator type. About 20% are projectors and less than 1% are reflectors. And so each of these is not necessarily indicative of personality, but it will help the individual to know. And then as a parent, it'll help you to know how their energy is governed and is managed and how to structure their life in a way that they're going to be able to be physically healthy, emotionally healthy, mentally healthy. And it gives you the map of where they do great at and where they struggle with. And all of that you can see very, very quickly in the chart. You can see the basics very quickly and be able to get an idea. So the reason why Dax is a manifester type, this does not mean the other types can't manifest. We all manifest. They're just called a manifester. Karen Curry Parker has also renamed all of the types, and she's renamed the manifester type to initiator. They are here to initiate. We can tell he is a manifester because he has this center is called the sacral center. It corresponds with the sacral chakra, and it is undefined. And then he has his throat center defined and it's connected to a motor is what it's called. There's 4 motors in the chart. And this is the motor, this one that I've got highlighted here. And there is a channel going straight from that motor to the throat. So because he has an undefined sacral and there is a motor to the throat, he is a manifester. This means he has inconsistent access to his physical energy. The sacral center is the most powerful center in the chart, hands down by far, especially when you're considering physical energy. He has a lack of sustained physical energy, but he has these motors. He has 2 out of the 4 motors, and they connect right up to his throat. So he has this ability to create through speaking, but he has inconsistent physical energy. So what this will look like is manifestors will have a huge burst of energy when they get inspiration. And they will be like, I'm going to do all this stuff and we're going to go, go, go. And it'll last for a couple of days, maybe weeks, months at the most. But on the whole, manifestors will spend most of their time in their rest cycles, meaning they're doing very little and they'll look lazy. They'll look
Mm-hmm.
like they don't want to do stuff because they don't have their defined sacral. But when they get those creative urges, when that inspiration comes and they bring it up and out their throat, they need to pause before taking action and tell people with their voice, hey, by the way, this is what's happening, not ask for permission. He's not here to say, hey, mom, can I do this? No, he's here to say, this is what's happening. They can be a little bit tricky to raise because it's an interesting balance of that parent-child relationship when the child is the manifester, because they are not really here to ask for permission. They're here
Wow.
to just inform and say, this is what's happening.
Okay,
And
time out. Now,
yeah,
because of who I am, I feel like I need respect. So here I've been saying his whole life, he doesn't respect me. I don't feel respected. But
Hmm.
this is something parents will say a lot is they're disrespecting me. But
Hmm.
it's not that at all, is it?
Not even a little bit. And respect and feeling a lack of respect is usually a trigger. It's not a real true principle that we need. It is almost always, and it takes a little bit of teasing out to figure out like what does respect mean to you and when did that begin and all of that. It's almost always your younger self fighting like hell to hold the power in your own space and have other people have a specific opinion of you. And so when people get triggered and they're like, you're not respecting me, it's because there was a imbalance of that respect ratio that should have been there between you and your parents.
Hmm,
Even if you
fascinating.
have great parents, even if they did the best they can, somewhere in there, the wiring got crossed where respect has been prioritized. It becomes more of a core wound.
Yes,
And so when you have children, children are going to do things that, if you have that core wound, absolutely will be interpreted as a lack of respect. And it has nothing to do with that. But Dax, your sweet, sweet son, was sent to you to trigger the hell out of this thing in you so that you could see that it's there and heal it. Because if
right,
this was never triggered, you would just keep going along with this wound that really does need to be healed and addressed, because it's not just learning to be okay if people don't respect you. It's so much more than that. There are massive layers of healing for you in that. And so we give birth often to our greatest triggerers because of the dynamic between a mother and a child, or a father and a child, is that you can't just discard them. You can't just divorce your children. I mean, some people do, but on the whole, this is a person that you have a specific contract with, that you are his mother, you're going to take care of him. And in that process, him just being him is translating to you as he doesn't respect me and this is not okay. And I have to control this because I'm the mother.
right.
And so you can see how the cycle can play out. And this, what you're experiencing, and thank you for being vulnerable, is very normal. Lots and lots and lots of parents go through this. And just understanding he's not trying to be disrespectful. He's literally not made to ask for permission. Like, this could be a 3-year-old. And I'm sure that the issues started that young, where you're like, nope, you need to respect me and you will respect me. And this is what this
Yep.
looks like. But just understanding fundamentally that a manifestor child is going to look lazy at sometimes and other times look like a freaking bullet train of energy. And it's all based on divine design because of how his body mechanics are wired. And that you, as a generator type, are having a wildly different experience.
Yeah, 100%. And I just remember hearing like my parents all the time saying, we would never talk to our parents that way. And
Yep.
our generation and our grandparents, we showed respect and all this stuff, you know. And so in my mind, I'm like, my kids aren't like that. What's wrong with my kids? They should be showing respect, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, the children that we have, like I have Dax's astrology chart, and I'll pull that up here. Um,
yes.
he's got all this Aquarius placements. Aquarius is the rebel. He's of this generation. Chiron was slowly making its way through. He even has the North Node there. And Neptune. Neptune took a really long time to go through Aquarius because Neptune moves really, really slow. And you can see his Pluto is right barely into Capricorn, 0 degrees of Capricorn. And so
Hmm.
he's actually here to, Capricorn is the energy, because we talked about Pluto Sagittarius is death and destruction to truth. That very, very beginnings of Capricorn, he is here to have total death and destruction around the structure and traditions.
Wow.
The 2008 babies all the way
Oh my gosh.
until now. Like, Pluto is exiting Capricorn for the last time later this year. All children born, like, we've had Pluto in Aquarius just for a hot second, and it's about to go back and then permanently leave Capricorn. But basically, from 2008 until last year and a lot of parts of this year, that Pluto Capricorn generation is here to say, absolutely not. Like, I don't care that this is how this was done. Like, think government, structured religion, traditions of anything, anything that has been around for a long time. That Capricorn energy is up for being destroyed.
And my business is all about traditional family values and
Mhm.
how to bring that in and things.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
okay. So I can see why we would butt heads here and there because I'm all about tradition and I love tradition, honestly.
And look at
contracts and
his
follow.
Mars is in Leo, so he's got a really fiery Mars sign. And Mars is how you go to war. It's how you fight. It's how you hold your boundaries. It's how
Yeah,
you say, I take issue with this.
right.
And then that Taurus, he's about as stubborn as they get. Like
Exactly. So
Taurus,
what's a mother to do here when you just feel like you're letting them raise themselves at this point because they know them best, you know?
yeah, it's really about restructuring and having a different conversation. I'm going to take this off so brains aren't confused because it can be really overwhelming.
Mm-hmm.
What's a mother to do? It's about really reassessing what is motherhood? What's my role?
Mm.
Because usually we're just passing on the good things our parents did and we're trying to fix the wounds of where they lacked because they're human and all
Yes.
parents are going to lack. And so we're usually parenting from that wounded or mindless place. And it's kind of a combination of both until we do our own healing work and we realize like nothing had a bigger impact on my parenting than when I started diving into therapy. Like I did EMDR therapy that reprocesses trauma and reprocesses the brain. I started doing that when my oldest was about 18 months old, and I processed a memory from when I was 2 years old. Nothing horrific happened. Like I don't have a very traumatized childhood. I was in a traumatizing marriage at the time and I didn't know it. I didn't know how to find definition for that, but my childhood wasn't traumatizing. I was just one of 10 children and didn't get the attention and focus that I genuinely, divinely needed because my parents just didn't have it to give. And so reprocessing a memory from when I was two and the clarity that I had, the assessment and the awareness at 2 years old, and then I will never forget coming home and seeing my 18-month-old and just having my brain break wide open and be like, what conclusions is he coming to? What
Mm.
interpretations is he having about the world? And then being able to understand later his astrology and human design just gave me so much more awareness of how much I was projecting onto him, how much that I was thinking, oh, I know my kid. Of course I know my kid. He's my kid. I've spent more time with him than anybody. No, just because
No.
you think you know your kid. Like my oldest is all of us actually are five lines is what it's called in human design. The five line is the most likely to be projected on and to not be seen clearly. I'm a five line and all three of my kids have a five line. So I
Mm.
have to be so aware that there is a really good chance that I don't see them accurately. So I have to tap into that deeper, quieter, more divine perception instead of being like, oh yeah, I totally know my kid. And
Yeah.
when I've done that, I've been able to unlock a lot more with him and my others, of course. But with him, there's reasons why I've had the most struggle with seeing him accurately.
That's so amazing. So we have to break down like there's aura types, like you said, but then we have authority and then we
Hmm.
have these profile lines. So
Hmm.
there's kind of three things we're
Yeah,
looking at, right? With
yeah.
human design. So
And
when
we get
people
into
are,
all of those in the course. I don't get
yeah,
into all of human design because obviously it'd be too much.
it's too
But yeah,
much.
the aura type, the strategy, the authority, and the profile lines are all covered in the light filled parenting class that teaches you how to understand the most basics about your children that will have the biggest impact.
And they really will. So do you happen to have like that course right handy where you can kind of tell them what's the modules for each one and maybe people can go, "Oh, that sounds like something I want to do."
Yeah, absolutely. Let's pull that up
You
and
guys need to take this course because you're going to see your kids and I have all my notes here for each kid just from learning about them from this course. I've never taken anything like this, you guys.
I love
It's
it so
different.
much.
It's
Yeah,
different from just learning how to put up with your kid or get along with them better. This is really knowing your child on a soul
yeah,
deep level.
absolutely. Yeah, so I'll just show you this is me logged in as an admin so you can see the whole course. But when you get the course, it has this intro video to it. And then these are all the different modules that are included. And so the first one has a video with a welcome to it. And I actually recorded the astrology piece years ago before I married my husband. So in that, I introduced myself as Naomi Fox. And then later, when I married my husband, I became Naomi Fox Reina. And so changed my last name to my middle name. And then once you get into these, I talk about parenting truths, like things that you just need to understand. I don't know why it's not, probably because it's in the preview mode. But and then we get into light field astrology where we go into the big three. And then the 12 zodiac signs, each one of these is a very rich
It
video that will
is.
give you incredible instruction. And then there's worksheets that you can use to be able to print off and like write all this stuff down.
Yes.
And then it's so funny, it won't let me just skip through
It's
normally. But
okay.
this is the human design section where we get into the intro of it, and then we get into your child's aura type. And like this is an hour and 17 minutes just on this one
Hmm.
video, just
Yes.
going over the 5 different aura types and then your child's authority. So you're learning human design, but you're also learning it in a way that you can apply it to yourself as you're going through. And then the profile lines for each of your children. But that's not
Hmm.
even everything. Then we get into strong connections, like different tips and tricks for being able to have those strong connections, like parenting support in general, things that I've learned. And then like I created my, I call this the Royal Bunch family book. I don't have it right here. I moved it somewhere else.
Hmm.
But this, like I've printed off all the charts of my children, and my husband and I got married a few years ago, and he has 3 children. I have 3 children. And so I get to be a stepmom as well. And in that, like, that's a whole other type of parenting, and it's a whole other type of struggle because I thought, I'm a great mom. I'm going to do awesome at this. And ooh, it is something entirely different. And I learned that not necessarily the hardest way, because I'm not really one to learn things the hardest way possible, but I definitely kind of slammed up against a wall on that one, and had to go in a different way at it. And then I also have this whole bonus of healing the inner child, full webinar that I did, that you guys can learn from and everything. And so it's about 5 hours of video content between everything. I think
Hmm.
it's over 5 hours to really take it in.
I loved it so much. And that bonus with Raw. I
Yeah,
listened to it twice and I'm like, oh man,
yeah,
he's
yeah.
right. Like we can screw up our kids
Mhm.
so easily, even just when they're a generator energy, giving them this bedtime, this strict, you got to be in bed by 8. Because I remember
Yeah,
parenting my first kid and I'm like, this is what it's going to be, and this is your schedule, and this is your routine. And that did work for my manifester in
right.
some ways, you know. For my projector though, like that could work. She likes to kind of do it at her own pace, but I'm a generator. And it's kind of like he says, you don't put generators to bed. Like you let them kind of pick their bedtime.
Yeah,
They'll
yeah,
tell you when they're tired. But I just think of all these ways that I'm like, I have totally not known my children like for who they are. And
yeah.
at the same time, my brain's like, but they needed guidelines and rules and you had to have structure too, you know? So how does a
Yes,
parent balance what is this child's human design versus
yes.
the structure of a family and what needs to happen?
I'm a really big fan of doing self-confronting and getting really clear on why do I think, yes, I believe structure in a home is really valuable. I'm not saying that, but get more curious on why do I think that I need this structure, and is this what is truly best for this child? And yeah, it can be hard. Say you've got like 6 kids and you're like, I can't just let them all do their own thing. Well, is that true?
Yeah,
Like,
is that true? Maybe you can.
maybe to an extent you can say, okay, within these parameters, like put yourself to bed but no later than 11. Like,
Yeah.
my middle child, my 13-year-old, he's born in 2010. He'll be 14 in July. He's a manifesting generator, and he's incredibly clever. He is one of the smartest people I may ever meet in my life. He's just got the most magnificent mind, and he is constantly trying to be like, push around his bedtime. And so we've talked about this, and I was like, yeah, I was like, turns out since you're a manifesting generator, like a generator type, I'm like, it's not really appropriate for me to tell you to go to bed, because as a projector, I need to go to bed before I'm tired. But
Yes.
generators and manifesting generators need to go to bed when they're tired, like, and they've used up all of their energy. If a non-sacral, so manifestor, projector, or reflector, anybody who has that white sacral center
Yes.
goes to bed when they're tired, they'll sleep terrible. And if a generator type goes to bed before they're tired, they'll sleep terrible. Generator types must use all of their physical energy every day within reason, but for the most part, check in with yourself and see, like, am I satisfied with the amount of work that I've done today? Play, whatever. If you're a parent of a young generator child, like check in. Do they look like they're actually done playing, or are they still kind of wound up and hyper at the end of the day? they probably needed to run around the block another time or do something more physical if they're not sleeping well. Where a non-sacral type will sleep terrible if they're too tired. That's the I'm too tired to sleep.
Oh
To a
my
generator,
gosh.
it's like, are you out of your mind? Like that doesn't even make sense. But
Right.
to a non-sacral, like, and here I am, a non-sacral parent raising three sacral children. I have a generator, a manifesting generator, and a generator, and my sweet husband is a generator. And so
Wow, a house full of
I
generators.
get my house just vibrates, and when they all leave, I go,
Yes, you need a long time.
I love my people, but I
Yes.
love being alone.
Yes. But
Hmm.
just learning like these non-sacrals need their own room, like their own space, you know? And
Yes.
I'm like, I'm kind of grateful I only had two kids because that works out perfect for my house.
Yeah, it's easier. I've got three, and our structure of our home, they're all generators, but like the rhythm of my manifesting generator versus my generator, they do share a room and they do prefer it. But there's times where my youngest, my 12-year-old, would rather go to bed much earlier than his brother. His body is like, yeah, and I'm done. He's more
Hmm.
proactive about using his energy throughout the day, where the other one, his mind is the energy that he's kind of running on. He doesn't physically go out as much, and I keep trying to help him, but as a projector, I'm like, I can't go run laps with you, but please
Right.
go run laps. Like, and it's so,
Right.
but at least, like, even though I'm not necessarily, quote, doing it right, I can see what needs to be done. I can see where the discrepancies are, and I can have compassion when he's like, Mom, I'm just not tired. I don't want to go to bed until after like 11, 11:30, 12. I'm not shaming him. I'm not telling him there's something wrong with him. I'm not forcing him. It's instead it's a conversation. Okay, well, you probably didn't use up enough of your energy today. How can we do this? How can we do this differently? And kind of requiring like do 25 jumping jacks before you get on the computer. Like come up with creative ways
Yeah. To use
to
up the energy. Yeah.
to help their energy govern. But like my husband's oldest is the only projector child out of all six kids. And him knowing that, because of course he met me and I blew his mind wide open because I'm
Hmm.
all talking about this stuff, and he was a smart man and realized the value of what I had to offer. And
Hmm.
he has invited me as a projector. I need to be invited to share my wisdom. And he has invited me over and over and over and over again to share the insights that I have. And his relationship with his oldest is totally transformed because my husband's a goer and a doer, and he loves to go ride dirt bikes and go mountain biking and go hiking and all the things. And his oldest is a non-energy projector. He has no motors at all. And so when he's like, okay, let's get up at 6 o'clock in the morning and load up and go take the dirt bikes out for 6 hours, he now understands that when his oldest is like, I really don't want to do that, that it's not a personal affront. It's not a, I don't want to spend time with you, like the things that we hear
Hmm.
that they're not saying. Now he can interpret it as like, okay, so we make sure to always invite him. So he always knows that he's wanted. And sometimes he'll say yes, but most of the time he'll say, I don't want to. And he really means it. And there's nothing personal about it. He really genuinely does not want to spend his precious energy out riding dirt bikes at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And that's okay. So he finds other ways to connect with him now
And
where,
how many of us as parents like force our kids, you have to come do this. We're doing this as a family. You're on
yes,
board. You know what I mean?
yes, absolutely. Yes.
It's not right.
I can only imagine if my parents would have known this and if they would have said, you're invited, we'd love for you to go, but if you don't want to, that's okay, and really mean it and have no strings attached and no guilt. How
Yeah.
many family activities would I have chosen differently? Because not
Right.
only am I a projector, I'm what's called a two line, which is the hermit. I need my
Hmm.
alone time. I
Hmm.
have to be alone. And I didn't know that. I'm one of the most social people I've ever known. So when I first ran my chart and it said hermit, I was like, well,
Right.
that's crap.
Mine does too. Yeah.
And so as I sat with that, as I really was like, okay, well, what does hermit mean in human design language? Like what are they trying to tell me? Because I'm really certain about my birth minute, so this is accurate information. What in here is divine that is for me? And the more I learned about it, the hermit is just I need to be alone to create the things that I need to create, and I need nobody looking at me. I need no pressure. I need to be in my own flow. I need to be able to switch back and forth between reading my book or drawing or meditating or pondering and having all of this unstructured time so that the ideas and the creation can flow into me and then I can produce it.
Yeah.
And because I'm an unconscious five line, I go inward and I hermit, hermit, hermit. And then the unconscious five line, I am compelled to turn around and teach to the world what it is that I learned in my alone time. I
Right.
can't not do it. And that's
Yeah.
my life's work. Leave me
So
alone
true.
and then let me tell you what I learned.
Yeah, I love that so much. So I'm feeling the struggle of parents out there who might be listening and going, I don't know how to let go of control, though.
Yeah,
I have to control my child in some way. And so
absolutely.
this is kind of an invitation for you to be like, take a deep breath. It's okay if they leave whatever path you have chosen for them for a time, right? Like they are figuring out who they are and they will, quote, be back in a way, or you will at least adapt to what they are choosing to do in a way. This is hard for parents when a child leaves the church or another child decides to do drugs or do other things, and you're
Yeah,
trying to let go of some control of what you thought their life might look like. What do we say to those
100%.
parents?
Oh, so much. Um, so first, I think it's so helpful to know what control really is.
Mm-hmm.
Every single person that you will meet is a control freak about something.
Yeah.
Every single person has OCD about something because control is the conclusion that our mind came to because something bad happened, usually when we're really, really young, and it hurt. We were in a lot of emotional pain or even physical pain, and it sucked. And so our mind, usually our very young mind, think like 2 or 3 years old, came to the conclusion, I don't like what happened. If I could have stopped this or that from happening, or if I could have made this or that happen, then the pain wouldn't have happened. So now I must dedicate all of my time and energy to making sure that this or that doesn't happen. That's all control is it is
Mm-hmm.
trying like hell to avoid the pain from happening again. And the tricky thing about it is there's a good chance you don't remember that first time that you came to that conclusion
Yeah.
because it was in such a young mind and it was such an immature mindset. And you're like, no, I'm 37 now. Like, I don't, or however old you are, like, that can't still be running my life. Well, guess what, sweetheart? Unless you go back and rewrite those patterns, that's absolutely 100% what's running the show. And so when those parts of us get triggered, like when you were just sitting there and playing with dolls and a parent came in and starts yelling at you for not doing something, that panic and that like, oh my gosh, and like all of that moment, those are the moments that we come to conclusions. And you could have the most loving parent in the world that just had like a really bad day, or you could have had a genuinely abusive parent that didn't know how to not yell and scream and be their own little tyrant because they were a 3-year-old trying to be an adult as well. And so if we don't allow these young wounded parts of ourselves, that's why I included the bonus of the healing the inner child in there. If we aren't addressing our childhood wounds, some of them are obvious to us and some of them are not, and we can't grow up the way that we were quote unquote supposed to, if we can't heal and go through those normal psychological signposts, we are going to be parenting our children from a very young age. And so imagine a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old trying to parent a 3-year-old or a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. And it's often the ages that we were the most wounded that trigger the hell out of us as parents.
Mm-hmm.
That those children are going to push all of our buttons. And it's been interesting going through. My oldest is he turns 20 this year. And so I've had all of that. And then, the stepchildren, and I've only parented my own. And so to an extent, I can't possibly be an expert, but I've worked with so many parents for so many years. And what I have consistently seen is the most powerful thing you can do for your children is to do your own inner work. If it's a matter of take them to therapy or take you to therapy, you take
Thank
yourself to
you.
therapy
Yes.
because that will pay out in dividends like crazy. And I've seen parents that are like, no, my kid needs therapy. They've been through a lot. Well, therapy for your child will mean jack squat if they come home to their home environment and you're just recycling all of the patterns that created the problem in the first place.
So
You don't even know
true.
you're doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you could be the most loving parent in the world. I know my oldest went through some really hard stuff that started around the time he was 12, and it really started to come out around the time he was 14 of just questioning a lot of things and just a whole bunch of things that I don't obviously want to share because that's his story and I want to protect his privacy. And it's nothing terrible. It's nothing crazy. It's just my mama ego was so bent out of shape. I had no idea how much my ego was wrapped up in my parenting. And that's what hurt the most is I
Mm-hmm.
thought my child shouldn't be like this. I thought I knew how he was going to turn out because I invested into him. I did all of this stuff. I did it correctly. And I can see in my chart why I came to these conclusions and why these things push my buttons this way. All of our buttons get pushed in a different way. But I really had to do a lot of self-confronting so that I didn't just pour all of that pain out onto him and make
Mm-hmm.
the whole situation worse. And I'm so grateful that I could catch myself in my mama ego It was years later, I was having a conversation with him, and he had spent quite a bit of time with his dad, and he had had this girlfriend, and I was just talking to him, and I love 1 to 10 scales for like gauging where other people are at. So I was like, yeah, how are things going with your girlfriend and all the things, just checking in. And I was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel like she gets you? And he's like a 9. And I was like, wow, that's great. I'm so happy for you. Like, that's amazing that you could have that kind of a relationship. Like, that's got to feel so good. And I was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel like your dad gets you? And he's like, like a 4, maybe a 3. I was like, yeah, that sounds about right. And his dad was trying, and his dad loves him, but he just hadn't done a lot of his inner work yet. And then I got brave, and I was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you feel like I get you? And I always have asked my kids stuff like this, like, so that it's clear that there's this open, and I cover this in the course, that there's this open communication between, like, please tell me. And he was like a 9. And I was like, are you serious? I was like, you feel like, he was 17 at the time. I was like, you feel like as a 17-year-old that your mother gets you at a 9 out of 10? He's like, yeah. And I was like, I'm winning at life. I'm like,
Yeah.
this is amazing, because it wasn't smooth sailing. Like, there was a lot of bumps, and I needed to work so hard to stay out of my own way so that he could just blossom into the person he's supposed to be. And like, it hasn't gone the way that I wanted. And he isn't turning out to be the person that I expected to. But I hope that he will continue to let me in, but that's still his choice as a
Hmm.
as a nearly 20-year-old man. Like, and just to continue to self-confront about what actually matters here and what doesn't matter
Yes.
here
So
is
important.
so vital.
Yeah. What actually matters, you guys. So good. So I'm thinking what people need to do is go to your website to put in their birth date and all of the things to pull up their charts. You need to pull
Yes.
up your charts. You need to pull up your kids' charts. Can you just tell us the website for that?
Yes, you can go to ilexology.com, and then if you scroll down, there's a run your free charts button, and you can click through to that, and you can run both your astrology and your human design charts there.
Side to side, you guys. It's right next to each other. You just put in your birthday and time and everything into birthplace. So
Mhm.
if it were me, I would do yours first, mom or
Yeah,
dad, who's ever
yeah.
watching, and get to know you, like understand you. Can they book a session with one of your coaches or with you to understand what their chart means for them?
Absolutely. And there's really no faster way to get it. I mean, I have a free mini course that covers just the most basic basics. But beyond that, because like you had said, I certify light field astrologers. I've got 31, almost 32 at the time of this recording, certified light field astrologers. I've got well over 100 students that have gone through it. And so I have my top recommended certified light field astrologers on my site that can go through. Some of them are also trained in human design, but they can go through and they can explain your chart to you. They can explain your child's chart to you. And they can really kind of go over like, oh, I can see the bumps and the issues where this isn't quite connecting, or you might consistently have struggle with this type of communication. Things like that are very easy to identify in the chart.
Yeah, and if you buy a course, what I noticed is there's an order bump for you to get a session and
Mhm.
an extra course for like a discounted price.
Mhm.
I would highly recommend doing that, wouldn't you?
Absolutely.
Because I was supposed to do a session before you with one of your people, but I was like, I just don't want to be rushed, so I had to push it back.
Yeah.
But I can't wait to be totally fully present and just learn more about me because it helps me to understand what I'm looking at when I look at my child's chart now,
Yes.
looking at mine and knowing my own. And then going through this light field parenting course, it is just so good, you
Yeah.
guys. It is so, so good. So I would go to Illuxology is spelled how?
ILLUXOLOGY. It means the
Okay.
study of the light-filled life.
Yes, the study of the light field life. I love that. And then can they find you on Instagram and YouTube?
Everywhere. I made up the word Ilexology so that I could get all the social media handles. So if you search Ilexology, I'm on Instagram, I'm on YouTube, I'm on TikTok, I'm on Facebook. I have a very robust Facebook group that's got over 3,000 people in it with a lot of conversations. That's a great place to learn. And you can get the link for the actual course in the show notes here with Heather.
Yeah, so there's a link that we'll put in the show notes for you guys to go and get that course and try that course. And you are going to love, 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 love it so much. I'm just so glad that you're here. Thank you so much for coming on. If you had one piece of advice right now for the listeners to take home, what would be the final piece?
If I could speak right to your heart, the person that's listening, and I could tell you something, it would be that you are doing so much better than you know. And the things that are causing you so much pain right now are probably just a perspective shift problem. And being able to see things with more truth will alleviate that pain. Almost all pain is just telling ourselves a story that isn't actually fully true, so it's not serving us. And when we're listening to something that's not true, that's where the pain comes in, because the truth will always set you free. The truth will always help you to feel peace and be able to have that relief, like the burden has just been lifted from you. And that really is this work, is pursuing the truth of who you are, pursuing the truth of who your child is, the truth of who you're co-parenting with, and take the truth of that, the reality, and parent and connect from that place so that you can actually move forward in a productive way, because the fantasy that you've been living in that's causing pain is no longer serving you. And you're listening to this for a reason. And so now it's time to move forward with actual truth.
That's just so, so perfect. And I would just add some urgency to this, you guys. We don't have a lot of time to waste. Our kids are going to grow up and get out of the house. And if you're a grandparent and you're trying to figure out your grandchildren, I would say this course is for you as well. You got to get to
Absolutely.
know you, get to know your grandkids better so you can parent them in a way from a grandparent perspective according to their light and truth and who they were designed to be as well. So
Absolutely. And it's never too late. If you
urgency.
have adult children, you can also get to know them better too, and go to them and say, wow, I simply didn't know these things about you. I'm so sorry. I just think
Mhm.
you're wonderful, and I love connecting with you adult to adult, and like, can we try this again if there's been some bumps?
Oh my gosh, they will love you for that. I promise it's
Yes.
not too late.
Yes.
But there is urgency in my voice, like do it now. Like
Yeah.
don't wait another day to know this information about your kids and your grandkids. Don't wait. Do it now because you're not going to regret, a day that goes by that you can show them how much you love them and know them on this deep, deep level. So thank you
Absolutely.
so much, Naomi.
You bet.
Thanks for coming on. As always, I hope to have you back one time again, sometime in the future, but
Absolutely. It's my pleasure. Thank you so,
amazing.
so much for letting me speak to your people.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.